Hello! In this video, we're going to show you how to use the European Frogbit Collaborative's Delimitation App, which is an Esri Field Maps app. For more information about the EFB Collaborative, visit efbcollaborative.net. First, let's talk about what the Delimitation App is. The goal of this app is to document where monitoring for EFB occurred and document how much EFB there was, if any. This allows you to keep track of your monitoring efforts while also supporting data collection for the region. At the end of the year, all EFB presence locations are submitted to MISIN, the Midwest Invasive Species Information Network, for inclusion in their database. You can collect 3 different types of data in the app to note EFB presence or absence: lines, polygons, and points. Lines and polygons are used to quickly record where you have monitored while reporting very little other information, and the point is placed either at the end of the line surveys or in the middle of your polygons to record additional information about your survey. A point must be placed with your lines or polygons. I'll talk more about situations in which you would use lines or polygons in a minute. When creating your lines or polygons, you will need to note the density of EFB at that location. We use the same density categories as MISIN. Absence means that there is no EFB present. Sparse is scattered individual plants. Patchy means that there is a mix of densities, such as sparse and dense. Dense means that there is more than 40% of the area is covered with EFB. And monoculture means that there is nearly 100% of the area is covered with EFB. And then found but removed means that EFB was present but was removed while performing their survey. Okay, so when you're monitoring, when should you use a line versus a polygon? Really, this decision is up to you, but the habitat that you're monitoring can also help you decide. Say you have a very large water body with an island in the middle, and you will be walking along the shore. In this case, you don't know if there is any EFB along the shore of the island, so rather than placing a polygon around the whole water body, denoting that the whole thing has been surveyed, it makes more sense to create lines noting where you looked around the edges. The way this works is you can either stream your location, meaning that the line is created and follows you as you walk along, or you can manually draw the lines in the app. In this example, the lines will be streaming. Say you start your survey here and notice that there is no EFB. You will start streaming a line showing that the EFB is absent, or this blue color. Once you run into a huge patch of EFB, you can start streaming a new monoculture line. Then there is another absent area, a sparse area after that, another monoculture area, and then the rest is absent. Once you are finished, make sure to place your point survey at the end and note any additional information that that survey requires. In this next example, say we have a very small pond that is completely covered in EFB and you can see across the whole pond. Here we could place a polygon denoting a monoculture. When finished, place a point in the middle of the polygon to record any additional information. Here's our last example. Say we have a small pond we can see across and know exactly how much EFB is present. We end up hand pulling the section of EFB from the right side of the pond. Now we could place a polygon around this area, noting that EFB was found but removed. For the rest of the pond, there could be a polygon noting that EFB was absent. There are no real rights or wrongs to choosing lines versus polygons for your survey, but always remember to place a point and enter any additional information anytime you do a line or a polygon survey. Here are some tips about placing your points. As I mentioned before, at least one point should be recorded after completing a line or a polygon survey, even when no EFB is found. And it's totally appropriate to just have one point for a whole bunch of lines or a whole bunch of polygons. But additional points should be collected whenever the habitat conditions or the EFB distribution vary within the survey area. You can use your professional judgment, but ideally collect 1 point per distinct survey area, especially when areas differ in habitat density or are separated by distance. Here are some situations where more points might be appropriate. Say the habitat shifts within the system, for instance from a cattail marsh to a forested wetland. Maybe there are transitions between water body types, for instance a lake to an outlet creek. There are multiple widely spaced EFB patches within a site. Or there are isolated patches with density levels that differ substantially from other patches. But when we say isolated, I mean this could be likely in a very large area. So before we get started in the actual app, here's how to access the app and the associated resources. You can find all app resources on the EFB Collaborative's ArcGIS Hub site at hub.efbcollaborative.net. You will need an ArcGIS account with collector-level capabilities to access the site and the app. If you don't have access to an ArcGIS account, the EFB Collaborative offers access upon request by granting an ArcGIS community account to eligible organizations. You can request an account on the EFB Hub site here, where it says, I need access to an ArcGIS account. If you have an ArcGIS account, you can request to join the EFB Esri group to get access to the app. There is information about that here. Once you have access, you will be able to sign into the Hub site and gain access to the app's resources. You can also access the ArcGIS online group, which I'll go over later. So once you are logged in, these menu options will appear up at the top. Go to the Delimitation tab to read the standard operating procedure or the SOP. A link to this and any other training videos will be made available here as well. We highly recommend reading the SOP before going out into the field, as it covers all things in more detail than this video and contains a quick guide to entering data. If you need to reference the SOP in the field, there is a link to it within the app itself. So all of the data that we collect is going to be added to this EFB Collab AIS Survey Field Maps. And that is going to be collected in the ArcGIS Field Maps app, which is available for both Android and Apple devices. You can see also on the hub, we have different versions of the app that I'll talk about in a second. You can view the data in a variety of mappers. We have authoritative versions of data from each year. You can summarize the data, and there is a public version of the mapper. So let's get started looking at the app's interface. First, you will need to make sure that you have Esri's Field Maps app downloaded on your device. I'm using an Android phone in this tutorial, so things will look a little bit different if you're using an Apple device. There's a quick guide to using both Android and Apple in the SOP if you need it. So at this point, we have opened up Field Maps and logged in, and the maps will appear in your menu if you're part of the ArcGIS online group for the EFB Collaborative, and that screen looks like this. At this point, you will need to decide whether you're going to be using the online or the offline version of the Delimitation app. There are two different versions to prevent data submission errors in the field, but rest assured the data go to the same place. If you know you are going somewhere with limited cell service, go for the offline version. Otherwise, stick with the normal version labeled EFB Collab AIS Survey Field Maps. The offline version has offline in the title and in the maps icon. If you're using the offline version of the app, you will need to remember to sync your data upon returning to an area with Wi-Fi or cell service. For the offline version, you are able to download areas of the map ahead of time before going out in the field, and I'll show you how to do that in the next step. All right, so we're going to open up Field Maps, and we're going to assume at this point you have access to the European Frogbit Collaborative group on ArcGIS. And now there are two delimitation maps. There's one for offline use and one for online use. And the one for offline use, you will be able to download an offline area. So by clicking Add Offline Area. And this essentially brings up a little square that shows where you can download the base map to your phone for use offline. And this was originally a very small little square at the level of the map level of room. So you see where it says town down at the bottom of the screen. We can click on that and change the size of the area of the download. So now I've just made it much larger. I'm getting the whole area of Ann Arbor here for download, and then you can click download and the map area will download to your device. We're going to look at the basic Field Maps interface here, and you can see up at the top there is a warning about 30 feet of GPS accuracy is required. When I took these screenshots, I was inside, and so my GPS accuracy is pretty high at 65.6 feet. We want something that is a bit lower than that. Usually if you're out with pretty good cell service and good GPS coverage, you're going to get something like 6 or 7 feet. Usually something around, less than 10, 15 feet is what you want. So let's look at the other things that are going on this screen. We've got a back button up here that will take you to the list of maps where you can select the online or offline version of the Delimitation app or any other map that you might want to use. We've got this layer button, and then that will show us all of the layers that are in the current map. So in this case, we've got all of this year's delimitation survey and all of the past years. You can toggle those on and off with the check marks. Then we've got a basic search function. You can look for an address, a city, a town. This is the overflow menu. If you click that, then you can see, you can change the base map. You can edit multiple features at once. You can see the legend. You can measure things. Personal markup. This means that you can basically draw on the screen wherever you want. That's not actually shared with us, but it is for your own reference. And then there is a way to share the map. This little bull's eye will take you to your current location. So say you were scrolling around on the map and you want to zoom back to where you are, that will do that. This toggles the compass and moves the map around, make sure that it's pointing north. This is not actually a button, but I'm just trying to indicate that if you move your fingers around on the screen, that is how you move the map around, and that will come in handy later when we need to edit or make points by drawing them manually on the screen. So you kind of move the screen around with your fingers to do some of that. And then lastly, and most importantly, this plus button down at the bottom is how you will add data to the map. So if you click that, then it will bring up all of the different types of data that we can collect. So our points, our lines, and all of their different densities, and also our polygons and their different densities. So we'll open up Field Maps, and the first thing that we want to do is make sure that we have the correct map that we are entering data into. So press back, go to Maps, and open up the EFB collaborative group and click the delimitation map that you want, either the online version or the offline version. So we are here at our retention pond. We're going to make sure that we have our correct layers. That's the 2026 delimitation survey in this case. And we're going to stream our location, and EFB is absent where I'm at. So we're going to do a line survey and click absent. And we're going to start streaming our location by clicking that overflow menu. So I'm going to just start walking, and as I walk, it is recording my location. You can see the length of the line is increasing as I walk along. And once I am done, I click stop streaming. During this, you also want to make sure that your GPS accuracy is good up at the top. All right, so once we're done, I'm going to make sure this is test data because this is just a test. And everything looks good, and hit submit. If I wanted to, I could add a photo, but I'm not going to in this case. Next, say I find some EFB, I'm going to start streaming a monoculture line and start walking where I have found a monoculture of EFB. When I'm done, I will again hit stop streaming, fill in the rest of the information. Again, this is test data. You can write any notes you want, click submit, and then click edit to take a photo. It helps to submit your data first and then take the photo and add it, just in case it loses your line. That's something that can happen sometimes. So I recommend submitting your data first and then adding a photo. So at this point, we're going to add our point at the end of our line, which has our more detailed survey information. You're going to fill out all the required fields, like your organization. In this case, this is test data. So I'm just going to put in test, put in who recorded this information, fill out things like the water body type, make sure that all of the required fields with asterisks are filled in or it will throw an error, but please fill out any additional information if you're able to. We're We're going to indicate that our target species of EFB was detected, add in the area. We'll say this is under 1,000 square feet. We'll put in the density as patchy, put the date. I'm just kind of quickly filling this out, and then say click submit. So we've got our line surveys. Let's say we want to add a polygon. Say we are able to survey this entire retention pond. So I'm going to manually draw this one. You do that by adding points and then moving the screen around with your 2 fingers and clicking add point every time you want to add a point. And when you're done, make any notes, check the density, and then click submit. And since this is not quite matching the shoreline, I'll show you how to edit this later. So let's say we want to edit that polygon that we made earlier. I made some of the edges overlapping the land. You can select that polygon and then select the point that you want to move. And then you kind of move the screen around to the point where you want to change it to. Then click on the overflow menu and click update the point. So we'll repeat that with this point, select the point, move it on the screen, and then update the selected point. Same for this last one, move the screen, update selected point. So now our polygon actually follows the edge and we click submit. Now it's edited. Say we just want to add our point because we forgot to do that. We always need a point with our polygon. So we will add that information here. Make this a test. Test. Pick the water body type. Make sure that we fill in all the required fields, which you can read about these different fields in the SOP. Put the date. And it automatically records our ArcGIS online email address if we're in the online version. All right, so say we want to just delete this polygon. Select it again, go to the More menu, and press delete. It'll ask you if you want to. You say yes, and it's gone. Let's do the same thing for the point. Select the point, delete. So please delete any test data or mark it as test. To double check your data, you can do so in the app or in ArcGIS Online. I would recommend doing so in ArcGIS Online on your computer for the ease of filtering and viewing your data. To do so, go to the ArcGIS Online group for the EFB Collaborative. So go to Groups, European Frogbit Collaborative, Content, and look for the version of the data that we are currently using, which is the EFB Delimitation Survey 2026. But obviously, if this is a different year, pick that one. And then we will open this up in Map Viewer. You can also open this up in ArcGIS Pro, but I'll just go over how to do this online. So we can see our points here. We'll zoom in. We've only got a couple test points so far this year. Let's see, here's the one that I created earlier in our tutorial. These are tests, so let's delete them. We just select it. If we wanted to edit it, we could go to Edit. And we can do things like select. We can, if you double click on it, you can move the points around. You can delete points by clicking delete. You can say update it if you want. But what we really want to do is delete this. So you can see we want to delete. It'll ask you, do you want to permanently remove this? Yes. For our point, we can edit any of the information in the form. So if that's something you need to do, you can do that here, but we're going to delete it. Same thing with this line. You can edit anything that you would like. You could add an attachment if you wanted to, but we're going to delete. If you want to be able to filter your data, you can look at the different layers. You can show a table. You can see who recorded them. And you can filter your data this way. Please don't edit other people's data. So if you did not create a data point, please do not edit it. All right, that's about it for the tutorial. At the end here, we want to remind you to always clean your equipment after going out in the field to prevent the spread of frogbit and other invasive species. You'll also want to make sure that your data is complete, so you might want to double check your data upon returning from the field. So you can either do that in the app or checking it in ArcGIS Online. And this includes making sure your sets of lines or polygons have associated point surveys with them. All data must be finalized by December 1st of each year. At this point, the EFB collaborative staff will quality check your data and send the final data to MISN. Don't forget to read the SOP for all the fine details of the Delimitation app, and make sure to email us with any questions at efb@glc.org. Thanks for watching and happy data collecting!